Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. A lot of decisions in life come down to simple choices, and we can go one way or the other. There's a great quote by J.K. Rowling saying, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." This really sums up a lot of the experiences of my next guest. His story is one of the most compelling I've had on Move Your Mind. He's incredibly candid about the difficult situations that he went through and how he eventually turned it all around. He's written best-selling books. He's one of the most sought-after speakers in Australia. And I just really enjoyed this interview, and I'm sure it's someone I'm going to stay in touch with. It's just amazing to be able to connect with these kind of people. Luke Kennedy's a mental health advocate, best-selling author, and one of Australia's most sought-after speakers, and I think you guys are going to take so much out of this. Thank you again for supporting us week on week. If you want to learn more, you can join the Move Your Mind community. All of the links for that are at moveyourmind.me, and you can buy the Move Your Mind book by going to nickbracks.com/book. And we've also relaunched Under Bracks and are donating $1 from every pair to mental health. You can find that at www.underbracks.com. Luke, thank you, mate, for coming on the podcast. We've gone back and forth a few times and finally got there. So it's, I'm glad we could do it. And I've had a look at the work you're doing, and we're chatting, just before we actually pressed record, and sounds like you're doing an amazing work, and love talking to people like you and, learning from you. And, I think just being able to relate as well on certain topics is always great. So yeah, appreciate you making the time.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you, mate. So I guess before we go into it, can you just give a background on yourself and how you got to where you are now and the work that you're doing?
Okay. I'll get through the sort of heavy stage first, just to get to where I am now. For about 8 years of my life, from 15 to 22, 23, I was obese, weighed nearly 130 kilos. I was the leader of a street fighting gang in Sydney. I was stabbed twice, a drug addict, alcoholic, and I came pretty close to killing somebody myself. So it was a heavy 8 years. And, during that time of my life, I'd pretend I was this strong, confident, this big, heavy, tough guy, and even happy at times. I'd muck around and be happy, but on the inside, when I was at home alone, I had my demons big time, scared, depressed, anxious, paranoid. I hated myself, really hated myself. So it was a big, heavy 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now,
super heavy.
After turning things around, that we'll get to soon, but after turning things around now, I'm speaking at schools, speaking at primary schools, high schools, prisons, and corporate events, speaking on resilience, motivation, and self-awareness. So it's been a trip. It's been a big journey, and I'm incredibly grateful for how it's turned out. Blessed, really blessed.
Yeah, well, I mean, huge credit to you, mate, because that's a big turnaround. And it's, I think already just hearing, talking with you and seeing how genuine you are. And I think just hearing these kind of stories is so powerful, and it's what really helps people, and that's what I found when I first got into the mental health work. It was 15 years ago almost. And really what I'm doing even today is a similar thing of just at the beginning, I didn't even, know what I was doing, but I'd go and just talk honestly and openly and be vulnerable and raw, and it really helped people. And I know for me, and when I hear other people talking like that, that's where you really, we want to hear real stories and learn from that, and we need it more than ever. So I think it's just great that you're, the such an amazing story, that you what you're doing.
Thank you. And I think the internal battles started, my mental health issues. It was really, I suppose, coming from early on, some deep insecurities. Growing up, I was overweight, big kid, extremely like a big kid, and those deep insecurities on the inside. And during that time, as this big kid, my dad and brother were both professional boxers, and I'd go to the gym and not to train, just to watch. And I'd watch my dad, my brother, and all these other professional boxers, and I saw them as like these warrior men, you know, these big tough gods even. And I saw the way the great fighters were respected. You know, people were slapping them on the back, helping them out, doing things for them.
Yeah.
And as an impressionable young kid, I was like, wow, I want a piece of that respect. You know, I'd love to be that man. I'd love to be that person. And I just went about it the wrong way. I went about it in the streets, you know, and in how the sort of the journey started to get into that gang. When I was in like year 7, the start of high school, I got into a fight with a guy that was in year 10. This guy a bit older than me, and as from year 7 to 10, that's like fighting a man. You know, it was just his. Totally. And yeah, it was big. It was a big jump for me, and I beat him in front of pretty much the whole school. And from that day on, you know, I felt that bit of respect. You know, people were like, bang, he can fight. Do you see him? That he can fight. And then I just ran with it from there. And then 7, 8, 9, then I got kicked out of school, met some heavy guys in the streets of Sydney, and seeing the way, you know, being known as the fighter, being known as the main man, from there I just climbed my way up the ranks of this crew. And then I attached myself to the label of the fighter, the leader, criminal, and then it was just spinning out of control. And you know, I was just trying to, I suppose, back then, just trying to suppress and drown those internal battles. And I wasn't looking at my stuff. I was drowning them through drugs, through alcohol, and through fights. And by drowning them and suppressing them, they just pop out in other areas of my life. I wasn't looking at my stuff. And I suppose that's what compounded my dark depression, just pushing my stuff down and just pop up in different areas.
Well, I mean, and it can't not sort of lead to, you know, eventually something dramatic happening and that's what so many people are doing on a big scale and a small scale. But, you know, I talk about it like it would be like if you're shoving rubbish into a bin and, you know, the bin's full and you just keep stomping on top of the bin to push it down. Eventually it's going to pop and overflow. And you know, this isn't the fault of any individual. This is, we're not taught, you know, how to understand emotions. We're not taught how to, like what you're saying, and similar in a different way in my story, like these identity issues. And then we're screaming for, okay, well, how do I fit in? Who am I? And we try and find a way to, you know, we want to attach to something, and that might not be something that's positive for us, but we don't have the awareness at the time. So it's so important to talk about. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you're right. It's just about, as well, with the students, bringing some awareness that we've all got those internal thoughts, you know, because after speaking to some of the students, you know, I'm sure you get them as well. Some of them like, I thought I was the only one with these thoughts. I thought I was crazy. If you have a voice in your head, you hear that it's crazy, you know, and I'm like, we've all got that internal dialogue, you know, and bringing some awareness to it and separating ourselves from it. I think that's the first step and the first path of coming back to purity, back to who they really are deep down. And so, yeah, I think like what you're doing and what we're all doing, bringing some awareness behind the stigma of mental health or the overactive mind, I think is one of the biggest steps. And so credit to you too, man.
Yeah, thank you. But like exactly what you said, I've heard that time and time again, where you go and do these things and you hear people saying what you said, you know, I thought I was the only one. And it's almost like you're being given permission to realize that, hey, you're not unique, and there's nothing wrong with you. This is part of being a human, and everyone in different ways goes through it. Even the people that look like they've got it all together, everyone, you can't not, and it's okay. And there's actually ways we can, you know, work through this and find a healthier way forward.
Yes, and find who they really are deep down. Because when we're trying to live up to those I suppose those labels, or the false self or the ego, that's where a lot of the worries about what other people think come into play. Because if we're not being ourselves, we've got to keep living up to this false identity, and the concerns of other people just sort of chip away at us big time. And I suppose that's what a lot of my crime as well came back down to, about not being in here, not being my true self, and trying to impress people, worrying what people think, and trying to live up to it. Even, you know, when I was stabbed, the guy who I had a bit of drama with this guy, and everyone organized when we saw each other, we're going to have a fight. As soon as I see this guy, or as in the city, as soon as I see him, he pulls out and unfolds a knife. And, you know, I every opportunity to turn around and take off in the other direction. He was far away, but being with one of my friends and him being with a crew of his guys, it happens in a split second. That whenever we're going to do something or not do something, it's that someone's, what are they going to think? 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 And then we base our choice on that rather than what's going on in here. So it happens in a split second. And when you become aware of that, you can notice that. And like I said, the awareness is the first step, because without being aware of it, we just make that split decision, that split choice, our action based on those concerns or what other people think, rather than, okay, come back to here, what do I feel? And by doing that what's he going that split second, I run straight ahead towards this guy that's holding the knife, and I jump in and throw a punch, and then he does the same. Then everything just stops. It was like he was frozen. It was this weird feeling. It was like we're in our own world. I mean, my friend was fighting his friend, but it was this weird sort of feeling. And then I feel like this warm paint going down my back, and I look over my shoulder, so there's blood gushing out of a wound. So he stabbed me, and he takes off. So do his friends. My friend rushes over, puts pressure on the bleeding, and I'm standing there. My vision starts closing in. I cough up my blood, and then bang, I collapse. I'm on the deck.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm laying there, and like I couldn't see. I can hear sirens in the background, and I'm laying there. I'm thinking, this is it. I'm done. But in my head, even back then, the power of the false self and the ego, I was like, I hope I survive. Not because I wanted to live, but just to hear the story of my survival. Like, I've been stabbed now, he survived, no one can stop. The ego was so powerful, and that false self had such a grip on me, like that. And don't get me wrong, the ego can be a great thing. The ego gets us competitive. The ego can be a good thing if we use it to our advantage. But my identity back then was just suffocating me, and that's all I thought about was not living to live, but just to hear the story of my survival. And I wake up in hospital. My mum's crying, my dad's fuming, and the doctors come in. They tell me it's a punctured lung. The knife went in my shoulder blade and punctured my lung, and it missed my heart by a few centimeters as well. So I was lucky. I was just lucky, And
wow,
yeah. So, and 2 weeks into my recovery, is this okay to go on with this story? We're cool.
No, please, mate, please. Yeah. It's super fascinating.
Okay, so 2 weeks into my recovery, I'm sitting at home, just being myself. What we're like when we're at home, just being our weird and wacky selves, wearing our shitty clothes, whatever, just chilling out, And so I was just being myself. But then I get a phone call, and I look at my phone, and it was one of my friends. As soon as I saw the name, his name come up on that I suppose my true self, my weird and wacky self, the identity just comes back on, of who I thought I had to be. And I even spoke different. I was like, hey, what's doing? Trying to sound tough. And again, another one, like there's the little intricate, there's these little, I suppose, these little actions that we do, or these little things that we do when we become aware of ourselves, the little things that we notice that take us away from our true self. There can be little shifty little things, but with big consequences. And even one of the little shifty ones is, around certain people that speak in a little bit different, just to sort of blend in a bit, or using words we normally wouldn't even use, and I say this to the students as well. If you ever find yourself, I suppose, speaking a little bit different, hang out with certain friends, or feel pressured to use different words around certain people, and they're bringing you down, I'm like, they're not your people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not your people. And it's like, don't let anybody in your life make you feel like you're not good enough. If there's people in your life that make you feel like you have to change who you are, and they're bringing you down, they're not your people. And so that, for me back then, though, I didn't understand that. I had like you said, no awareness, no tools, nobody to listen to, no mentors. I didn't understand this self-awareness. I didn't understand all this stuff. So doing that, okay, what's doing? He said, the guy that stabbed you is at a party on the North Shore in Sydney. He's like, do you want to go get him? And inside my head, like in here, in my heart, I should say, I was like, no, not really. But again, what's he going to think? What should I do? He's going to, yeah. I was like, yeah, come get me. So go out into my parents' kitchen. I'm still living at home. I was like 18. I open up the kitchen drawer. There's all these knives sitting in there. And I pick up a knife myself and I'm standing there holding it. And the process starts happening. You know, don't do this. Don't you kill this guy again. I'm dead. Yeah, but your boys are coming. You got to fight. You're the driver. You're the leader. Yeah, but don't do this. You don't want to do this. What if you end up in jail? What are your parents get? Yeah, but what? And again, though, listening to the conditioned mind and the worries about what other people think and my insecurities, put the knife down the side of my pants. I go at the front. 4 of my close friends rock up. I get in the car. And we're driving through the city. I remember going over the Harbour Bridge and nobody was speaking. It felt like nobody was breathing. There was this thick energy in there. It made me feel sick. And inside my head, I'm like, please, I just want to go home. But get to the front of this party and the boys have tapped me on the back. Let's go. Let's get him, swearing, carrying on, hitting me. Let's get him. And, you know, because one ego by itself, one false self, you know, can be pretty harsh. But if you start adding a couple around, it can become deadly. You know, they're all bouncing off each other's identities, all bouncing off each other's. Whereas if we just, you know, all of us in that car, 5 of us in that car, not one of us really wanted to be there. You know, everyone was just bang, 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 worrying about trying to live up to this identity. So I run up to the front of this party and I boot the door in, I run through, I'm screaming, you know, where is he? Screaming, throwing his friends on the floor. And, you know, on the outside, it was like I looked like I was looking for him, but on the inside, I'm like, please don't be here. You know, I don't want this guy to be here. You know, a few moments passed, it felt like a few hours, and I had like the realization, like, he's not here. Like, so I leave and I find that the next day, the guy I was looking for was using the toilet inside that party. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He was in there when I busted through the front door and stayed in there. You know, I speak to students about this as well, the choices, you know, that just those choices. If the knife a slightly different angle, I'm not here. Him not use the toilet, I'm not here. And yeah, so and it was just story after story. It was just drama after drama during that time. And it was just compounding my darkness on the inside.
Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organization and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups. And you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. This group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events. We've got courses. We've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me.
Hey, that's, well, thank you, for sharing this because it's so powerful and it's crazy. And I guess like you're saying, you change one little thing and it could have gone the other way, and you've been able to come through it and take all of these lessons and then educate people through these different lessons. So I guess and again, if I equate it, in a different way, I was off the rails and climaxed in a car crash where the same thing. My best friend was lying in the back of the car and it wrapped around a tree and he jolted up just as it hit, and had he not done that, he's killed instantly. And he still had to go to surgery, and the police that came said they'd never seen a crash like that where anyone survived. So it was one of those things where we were so fortunate, and I had all these learnings, but because I was so in the thick of things at that point, I actually still kept going and repeating the same behavior of getting drunk and getting in these situations. And it took to a point of just being almost catatonic to have to change it. Like for you, when this whole period, was that the turning point, or did it continue for a period longer before you went and
there wasn't a turn. It was just another identity, like a stab victim now, being stabbed. So it's just and and even going to get that guy was another form of me. Like everyone was talking about it, that I rated this part. It was just this whole, it was like
so it fuels the ego again, and it's
just this popularity contest, this people talking about me. And I was just, and that wasn't at all, that wasn't the turning point. I saw friends drop dead right in front of me on pills, I was stabbed in the head as well with 2 bottles. Like it was just crazy times. But the start, I suppose, there was a few things that helped me start turning it around. It was boxing. Getting into my boxing was a big change. I got a job. I wasn't working during that time, and I was breaking the law to make my money and just living this this crappy existence. I was getting up whenever I wanted. I was eating whenever I wanted to go in the bed. I had no structure. And for a young man, you need some structure and discipline, but I didn't have that. So getting a job was a big turning point. And working at this place, it was actually a handbag factory, so it wasn't really the career of a lifetime, but it was like, again, it was the start. I needed to get some structure in my life. And working at the handbag place, I made a little change. I stopped eating takeaway and started packing my own lunch. And I weighed nearly 130 kilos at this stage, big guy.
Yeah.
And just that little, and no muscle. It was just like chips and gravy and Bundy rum, and making the little changes. And again, taking back to some of the I speak as well, that the little changes matter. All our big goal in life, we hear it all the time. All the big one is a bunch of little changes on the way, but we forget about the little ones. We think they're too small, but the little ones, and even going to bed earlier is a little change. Reading instead of telly, going for a walk instead of sitting on the couch, asking for help if you need it, change. These little changes matter. And the change I made, no takeaway, pack my own lunch. Soon I lost 5 kilos, then 10. Started boxing, started doing a bit of training. And I said to my dad, teach me how to box. I want to fight. He's like, stay focused, show me if you got what it takes. So that in itself, again, making little changes. I ended up losing 50 kilos, started boxing, won my first 3 fights by knockout, on top of the world. Life was flying. No more drugs, no more alcohol, pushed that aside. Hang out with the crew sometimes for a feed, not partying, but still seeing my friends every now and again. Life was set. Life was going great. But all the changes I was making, though, were in the physical space. There's nothing really changing up here or in here, where the lasting change happens. And I was making some good changes, don't get me wrong, some great changes, but again, it was just all in the physical. And continuing to make changes in the physical, I decided to join the Navy. And I was like, a proud career, this beautiful career. I had some drama with my criminal history to get in, but then supplying references, I'm in, right? I'm like, great, life's set. And then I go to Thailand with my brother as a last little party, a last little hurrah before going into training for the Navy. And the first night I'm in Thailand, after living that clean life for so long, I party hard, get on it, carry on. I disrespected the Thai people, the culture, and the land of Thailand. This was back in 2008. I disrespected the people there, carrying on like just a drunk idiot, really. And I paid a heavy price. I jump on a motorbike and I get hit by a truck. So I break both bones in my leg, my hip, my pelvis, and my jaw.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wake up and it's going so good too.
Yeah.
So I wake up in hospital, and other chaotic events happen. I won't go into too many details here, because a lot of it's in the book, Sex, Drugs, and the Buddhist Monk, that's coming out. But a lot of chaotic events happened, and it was a result of me disrespecting the land of Thailand. I paid the price for that. But then a monk comes into play, and this monk, he shows me, a lot of why the chaotic events were happening in my life. Why all this drama, why the chaos, why the mental health issues, why I was attracting all this stuff into my life. And a lot of it, like I said earlier, was me not looking at my darkness, not looking at my emotions, not feeling my emotions, and not looking at my traumas, my triggers, my shadows, the past stuff that I just pushed everything aside, suppressed it, drowned it. And like I said, then they started popping out in other areas. Even when I was turning my life around, they'd pop out where I'd be in a relationship for about 3 months and then close up and get out.
Yeah.
You know, because I close my heart up, not trust, and get out and blame them. They come out in drug and alcohol, getting blind drunk, because I was just trying to drown them. They come out in anger, impatience, fear, worries, and because I wasn't looking at my stuff, they'll be popping out in other areas. So this monk, who in the book is turned into an archetypal, I suppose, reflection of a lot of the insights I've come across these past 10 years, and a lot of the masters as well that I've learned from as well, has all been compressed into this monk. And he showed me by looking at and sitting in my suffering, which was tough, sitting in my suffering, sitting in without the distractions, sitting in it, feeling it, understanding it, with help as well, then I could eventually move through it, right, and move on, rather than let it chip away at me my whole entire life. And that was a big turning point. And it's been a big process since then. It didn't just change then because I got back to Sydney and put all the weight back on and started carrying on again. But all these years later, 10, 12 years later, or whatever, what year are we in? 15 years later, maths isn't the best. All these years later, it's been, in particular, these past 12 months, man, these past 12 months have been the hardest of my life, but the most beneficial and the most, I suppose, the most aware I've been, and the most, being able to understand why a lot of my past was happening, to understand a lot of my triggers, my traumas. And it's been tough. It's been really tough, but it's been incredibly beneficial, because I want to have a family. I want to step into a full relationship with an incredible woman and have a family, and be the man to do that. And even though I've made some big changes over my life, I thought I was, but I wasn't the man I thought I was, to be able to step up and be a dad and be in a family, because I had trust. I'd get out, and I was loyal. Don't get me wrong. I'd be loyal in relationships physically, but not energetically.
Yeah.
I'd close off, but I'd still stay. And to be in a relationship, women are incredibly intuitive, and they could feel that, and they could feel
Absolutely.
that. And I'd open up hearts, and then I'd freak out and get out, and that's not right. So, but now these past 2 years in particular, has been a lot of sitting in my suffering, sitting in my stuff, with help, definitely with help. Been torn to pieces at times, been brought to my knees, but it's sitting in and feeling what I'd been distracting myself from for my entire life. And I'm incredibly thankful for some great people in my life to help me through this process. One man in particular named Dan Regan. He's called the Shadow Hound. He's an incredible man, and he's helped me big time. A mentor of mine and my best friend too. What that man's done for me is changed my life big time. I thought my life was good before, but these past 2 years have been tough. But like I said, now I'm in this space where I'm incredibly grounded and less floaty, less pretend happiness, but embodiment of the happiness. And because I moved to Byron, a couple of years ago, and rocking up to Byron, Byron's, and the energetics of Byron brings up a lot. It brings up a lot there, and I rocked up, and all this stuff started coming up in me. This regret, this shame, this guilt, these stuff from my past that I'd forgotten about, but pushed aside, and it was all coming up, and I was like, what is it? I got to get out of here. This isn't me. I'm happy. I'm a happy dude. I'm a speaker. I'm in mental health. This isn't me. I don't feel this stuff. What do you mean? I don't suffer. But again, it was my escape artist of me looking at and closing up and making change and getting out. But sitting in it, meeting Dan in particular, because he's, when I arrived to Byron, it's a spiritual place, but a lot of it, I suppose, a lot of it was a lot of talking about spirituality. Everything's about,
Yeah.
It was a lot of different courses, different event, and different all this, but it felt like too much. It was like it was all talk with some incredible people that I met, but it was me looking at it in the wrong light because I was like, it was bringing up too much for me. But then I met Dan, and he spoke about it, but he was more an embodiment of it. And I sat with him, and I was like, this man's a powerful man. And sitting with him and the process that he's taken me through over these past 18 months or whatever it is has been a game changer. And I'm incredibly thankful for that. And I'm thankful now for being able to sit and not distract, and even because my distractions were as well was dating, was sex, was even my I was addicted to my reading. I was always distracting myself from sitting still, from sitting in my contemplation, and now I'm celibate at the moment as well. No dating, no self-pleasure as well. So it's been a long time as well. So no releasing. And again, it's about me sitting in it without the distractions. And like I said, it's been tough, but the best thing I've ever done, because now I'm embodying what I'm teaching, and it feels good.
My name's Nick Bracks, and I'm a storyteller who has dedicated my entire adult life to creating positive conversations around mental health. In recent years, discussions around mental health have become less taboo and entered the mainstream vernacular. I've delivered over 1,000 mental health seminars around the globe, including several TED Talks, and I believe we all have a story to tell. In my book, Move Your Mind, I cover my story and stories from people that inspire me, as well as insights from world-leading mental health experts. This book will help you to learn how to recognise mental health issues before they become a problem. Use your personal challenges as motivators, take ownership of your well-being, and create new daily habits that increase happiness and reduce stress.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for, I think what I'm loving so much about, so many things about you already in this interview, but just the fact that you are so genuine and so honest. I think it's just, I think it's just the most important thing. And the message you're saying there as well, that's such an important message that and I went through that as well, where I'd worked on myself, and then I quickly was getting, talks and doing this mental health advocacy, and then didn't realize that, I was sort of, you start hiding behind that, or thinking that you still don't have a lot of work to do yourself. And it doesn't, we literally never get to a point where we don't stop working on ourselves. And, if you do, then you're stopping growing. And that's just, it's an ongoing process forever. And we're going to have ups and downs. And I think reminding ourselves that is so important, because it's not about getting to an end point. And I think it's a really hard thing to grasp. And I still really struggle with it, because I've got that nature of, competitive nature. You're looking for the next thing, and you can't look at it that way, but we're taught to look at life in that way, because that's how society is. And it's about acquiring things and moving, and it's sort of restructuring and reframing our whole view on how we see things. And I think it's just, it is such an important message for kids and for everyone to understand that this is an ongoing journey. It's something that we just need to learn as a life skill and apply to our life in a day-to-day sense. And we don't stop learning.
Well said, man. Well said. You're right.
It's important.
And, thank you. And everyone's different too. Like what I do might not work for somebody else. What they do might not. And because people's struggles are from different, I suppose, different stimuli, different events, different paths, even generational stuff. We don't even there's
exactly
people's struggles are from different things, and it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Even with some of the kids, it's like, maybe I'll play basketball with them to get that connection. Some don't mind talking on the phone, so they'll text me. So there's all these different things that we're with different approaches, because we're all different creatures. And I think that's the one of the best parts of life too.
Absolutely. So the majority of your work now, is that going and talking? Is that you travel? You're telling me you're traveling, talking at schools, and is that sort of the main thing you're focusing on at the moment?
Exactly. That's all I do. My
Amazing.
speaking and my speaking and my writing. Yeah, it's the speaking fell into place. I wanted to do it like big time. I wanted to, but back then my insecurities. The book came out and my first book came out in late 2014, and I was invited to come speak to a school after a teacher read the book, and I was terrified, man. I was like the self-doubt, like it was heavy for me. My social awkwardness back then, it was big. I couldn't even speak to somebody I didn't know without stuttering. But stepping up through those doubts, and it just took off. And now it's my mission, my purpose, and passion all rolled into one.
Mate, well, commend you on it. And again, I keep going back to my own examples because there's so many parallels here. And I was the exact same, where I fell into it. I was so insecure, so afraid of my own shadow that I literally couldn't look someone in the eyes and have a conversation. And when I had been through that whole period, I eventually had to do something. And I got into this course at university, and it was a business entrepreneurship course. And we had to do, 15 presentations in the first semester. And I was in such a bad way at that point that I had to actually do something, because I was just doing nothing, abusing alcohol. And I was about to pull out of the course, and I was panicking, and I was like sick to my stomach, and I'd turn up and do these talks, and I'd be vomiting before talking in front of 5 people. Wow. And just to go from that to then, hearing that you've gone from that to now making that your career is such a cool message for anyone, because it just shows, you can go and there's no right or wrong approach to things, and you can overcome anything really if you want to put your mind and your heart into it. So it's amazing story and amazing message, mate. I love it.
Thank you, brother. Well said. Thank you.
It's a 10-year anniversary of Bracks, and we've relaunched with the classic white pair. We've also got new styles coming out super soon. We're donating $1 from every pair to mental health, currently to 1 in 5. You can find all of this at www.underbracks.com.
So your book that has come out, or it's coming out soon, and can you tell us a little bit about that? And we'll have all the links for it in the show notes. But yeah, I'd love to let our listeners know a bit about your book.
Cool. So Sex, Drugs, and a Buddhist Monk has just been published. That was published a few weeks ago. So that's the journey of me just when I turned things around and went to Thailand, and then the monk comes into play. So it's the journey of me understanding to look inside with the cool stories. Sex, Drugs, and a Buddhist Monk. And the other one is coming out in November, which is Rockpool Publishing has republished my first book, Stabbed Ego, and it's now Redemption Road. So that's getting published in November. And that's my story through my childhood, the fights, the ego, the false self, and the journey out of that.
Amazing, mate. And where can people go if they want to find information about you, your books? What's the best place for us to send them?
The books are going to in bookstores, so any bookstore you go to. If you want to find me, my Insta is probably the best. Luke's Kennedy, Lukes Kennedy.
Yep. Great. And again, this will all be in the show notes, and but definitely make sure anyone listening, check it out and go and have a look for the book, because this story already has been amazing. I can't wait to read your book myself and learn more about this. So we finish every episode with just 5 closing questions. So these can be sort of quick answers, whatever comes to mind, nothing too crazy. The first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Being at Newtown PCYC with my dad, brother, and all the other boxers, definitely. And Johnny Lewis is an incredible man. Johnny Lewis, a Hall of Famer, boxing trainer, great man. Just the laughs and the banter and watching people that I really looked up to. Probably that. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. What do you think currently in society is the biggest burden on mental health?
Media, social media, and media. Yeah.
I would say probably I'd say 90% of people have said that, and I agree. It's a big one.
And that one there can, it's, because it's another distraction piece, another distraction from sitting in self, and just little changes around your phones and can matter. Even just quickly, that if just one little boundary around your phone, if there's food in your mouth or food on the table in front of you, just start with that boundary, no phone.
Yeah.
Honor your food, taste your food, connect with those people around you. It's making little steps around our phones, little boundaries in place. So even just start with that.
I couldn't agree more. What's your personal definition of happiness?
Whew. Right, that's a good question. When am I happiest, or my personal definition of happiness?
Sorry, your personal definition of happiness. I guess, yeah, I ask that because I'm trying to sort of get people to reframe how we've been taught to be happy versus,
Yeah. My personal definition of happiness is my peace. Is when I'm at peace, when my mind is still, and simple things too. When my mind's still and I'm just sitting in a cafe with my friends, just happiness. Just, when I suppose it's the same as enlightenment. The Buddha says, instead of saying what it is, he says what it's not. It's the end of suffering.
Yes. I love that. That's great. Great way to put it.
Yeah.
What are you most afraid of? Oh, sorry.
Ooh. My parents dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. It's a big one. My parents have been there my entire life, and I've done a lot for me, and it's great to be able to give back now. But yeah, losing my parents is a big one. So that's a big, yes. That's a bit deep, but yes.
Yeah, it's definitely a big one. And final one on a more positive note, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? For myself? Or
in your own life, what are you, for yourself, what are you most proud of? Sure.
I'm most proud of exactly what I'm doing now, is speaking, and being able to help our youth, through struggles. I used to think I was lucky back in the past of all the stuff I got through, but it wasn't luck. I think I was looked after, to be able to go through this purpose of being there for our youth, to help them through some struggles, or help them through successes, I should say, help them through their successes too. But my big goal, like I said, there's something I'm going to be extremely proud of, is when I become a dad. Like, that's what I feel for myself. There's no greater purpose, with the speaking as well, but with the helping our youth, but to be a man, be a family man, providing and leading a beautiful family. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's what a lot of the stuff, the therapy, the energetic healing, the diving deep, the sitting, that's what it's all for. So I can be that man capable of having a family.
Yeah, well, there's nothing more meaningful, is there? But I think it's a great one to end on, and just, it is a good message what you're saying, that we should all work on ourselves when we want to enter into those things, when we want to have a relationship and have kids. And it's a big area. It's tough. It's something I'm continually working on, and we all should be. And yeah, I think it's a great message. And mate, I would love to, do a follow-up podcast with you, and we'll have to stay in touch, because I love everything that you're about, and so glad, this is my favorite thing about doing the podcast. I get to meet people like yourself and sit down and, have these in-depth conversations and build these connections. And I really appreciate, you making the time to do it, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch. And yeah, love everything you're doing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, definitely would love to stay in touch. You're a good man. You're an incredible man, and you're doing some great stuff. Even you rocking an underwear company as well, like modeling, underwear, actor, speaker, mental health advocate. You're killing it, brother. Good stuff.
A few different things, but the underwear was a while back. But yeah, trying to, mate. But again, like what you were saying, trying to also, make sure that I keep working on myself and don't get too caught up in the doing things for the wrong reasons. So it's a continual battle, but appreciate it.
Nice, man. Nice.
Awesome. Thanks so much, mate.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks to Luke Kennedy for joining me today for Move Your Mind. And just a reminder that the Move Your Mind book is available at nickbracks.com/book. You can join the Move Your Mind community by going to moveyourmind.me. And you can buy a pair of underbracks and help in mental health by going to www.underbracks.com.